Hey there, friends. What a polarizing thing this Kansas City parade shooting has become. We're literally looking at a situation where bad people shot innocent people, some of them, yet people are taking sides indirectly of the shooters in some cases. I'm not sure that I've ever seen that. In fact, the media is running cover for these shooters right now. I wonder why that is. February 14th was the celebratory parade by the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 days later, I catch this story, February 16th, 2 teenagers charged in Kansas City Super Bowl rally shooting. The city is now grappling with the tragedy. Today is 5 days later. 5 days. We still don't have the names of the shooters. Now, you saw what the headline said, right? 2 teenagers. Oh, I know what you're thinking. We definitely don't want to disclose the names of the teenagers, right? Because they're teenagers or juveniles, right? I'm going to give you guys a second to process that. Because I know that's what some of you were thinking. At least the trolls in the comments section on my videos, which I absolutely love because you guys are fueling the algorithm. Keep it coming. I love it. I know that's what you're thinking. Oh, Paul, you should know better. They're juveniles. Really? Let me take you back to something that I didn't hear anyone talking about protecting the identity of a juvenile. First of all, can you guys agree, those of you that want to argue with me, that we should not separate mass shootings, that we should all throw them in the same bucket? Can you agree that Kansas City was a mass shooting? You guys are claiming that it is. In fact, Gun Violence Archive has already added it to the list of mass shootings, right? So using their information and using the liberal media, using the wackos on the far left, they all want to classify them as mass shootings, right? So we can agree that Kansas City was a mass shooting based on your definition and theirs, correct? Am I right? Okay, so you're saying that if we have a mass shooting, because you're claiming that this is, and if juveniles are involved, we should protect their identity. It's the right thing to do because they're juveniles, right? November 30th, 2021, 3 killed, 8 injured in shooting at Oxford High School in suburban Detroit. Now you guys will remember this was a rampage killing where the mass shooter went into a school and killed some people. This mass shooter was a teenager just like these Kansas City mass shooters. So we have a Michigan mass shooter and we have Kansas City mass shooters. 5 days later, the Kansas City mass shooters have been captured and charged, but not identified because we want to respect their privacy because they're juveniles. December 1st, 1 day after the Michigan mass shooter, student becomes 4th person to die in Michigan school shooting as suspect is identified, charged with murder. The story reads, second paragraph down, the suspect, Ethan Crumbly, 15, was charged Wednesday with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of terrorism causing death, 7 counts of assault with intent to murder, and 12 counts of possession of a firearm and the commission of a felony. All of these charges would apply, but they are not charging our Kansas City terrorists or mass shooters with terrorism, and they won't identify them. Why do you think that is? Legitimate question. Why do you think that is? I'm legitimately curious. In Michigan, 1 day later, they identify the mass shooter. Kansas City, 5 days later, no identification of the mass shooters. There's got to be a reason. Is it the obvious? Because it seems like the obvious that the media trying to get behind Joe Biden's white supremacy claim of being the greatest danger to America.
The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
It's even more funny to listen to him try to say it. Is that why? Is the media so locked in to this administration and so locked in to the goal of demonizing anybody who doesn't have pigment in their skin? Is that the ultimate goal, that they're so bought into that whole narrative of demonizing a race of people? They're trying so hard to make one race of people look bad that they're willing to not only apply a different set of rules, but to completely ignore the fact that their hypocrisy is on full display like it is right here. I'm not saying I care who the juveniles are in Kansas City any more than I cared about who the juvenile was in Michigan. But pick a side. You either get to tell me who the juveniles are that are committing your mass shootings, or you don't. You do not get to pick a different set of rules and a different standard based on just skin color. Because that's all the difference is right now. You have evil people who made a decision to fire guns at other people. And people died. And people suffered as a result of that. And they're juveniles? You cannot protect one group of juveniles and not the other. You cannot change the rules based on who the players are. And the other thing that I want to point out that is the obvious is that the White House, the mainstream media, and the racist trolls on the far left have got to decide what angle they want to take on these mass shootings. I'm getting kind of tired of doing this, but it's the right thing to do because it's the sarcasm using their made-up term to throw everything in the same bucket. As I always state, you cannot solve a particular type of violence if you can't properly identify it and the root cause. By throwing rampage killings, with indiscriminate killings, gang-related shootings, and domestic shootings all in the same bucket, how in the world do you solve that? You couldn't magically make all guns disappear and solve that issue. It's still going to be an issue. These people will still commit the same amounts of and types of violence that they're committing. But what I want to point out is if you people are so hell-bent, as obviously some of these publications still are, CNN cited again using this gang shooting in Kansas City as the 48th mass shooting in the United States, according to the Gun Violence Archive, which I debunked, by the way. Anybody new watching this, if you want to see January's numbers that these people literally just cited in this article, if you want to see the actual breakdown of those numbers and what's legitimate, I'll tell you, as a spoiler, what they are. 30 of them were confrontation shootings or gang-related type shootings. House parties, block parties, street parties, or just people getting mad at each other and shooting at each other. One was what we would normally describe as a mass shooting. One. Just one. And it was also a school shooting. It's where that kid walked into the, was it Iowa? Perry, Iowa? And shot people in the school, killing one 11-year-old boy. That was the only legitimate one. So out of 34, you had 30 that were gang-related, 3 that were domestic violence, and 1 that was an actual mass shooting. By the way, the media tries to portray that act as being something that's unpredictable and indiscriminate. So while the demonization of a particular race of people continues by the White House, the wackos on the far left, they have to pick a side on this as well. You either get to say most mass shooters are white, which would apply to your rampage shooters. That is true. If you look historically and you take actual rampage shooters, not the whole bucket of mass shooters. If you take the whole bucket of mass shooters, you're going to have to look at people with a different pigmentation in their skin color. But if you want to stick to the narrative, the only way the narrative of white people being considered all the mass shooters or a majority of the mass shooters in history is you have to do like I did and properly dissect these subgroups of mass shooters from the Gun Violence website archive and pick out those ones that are indiscriminate and random, right? You have to do that. So you either get the one mass shooting in January out of 34 that you claimed, and then you would be accurate to say that, oh, another white person committed a rampage killing. Or you have to change your incorrect narrative because it's very easy for somebody to use the website you are citing to frighten people and show you with your own data that you're wrong. I'm not going to be the only guy that calls you out on it.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's over.